Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Orbital Conversation with. My name is Livia, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Orbital magazine.
Hi, I'm Beth. I'm the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Orbital magazine, and today we are joined by...
My name's Lydia, and I am a communications executive at Jamie Oliver Group. And yeah, I don't know what else you need to know about me, but yes, that's what I do on a day-to-day.
It's very nice.
Amazing.
So before we start, I'd like to say we're very excited to announce that, again, for anyone who's watching, that this is the beginning of our series 2. So we made it through series 1. People actually wanted to join us, and people still want to join us today, which is good. And yes, we're very excited to see how the next kind of term goes. And probably should start with a little bit of how we know Lydia or how I know Lydia. So it was a couple of months back in September, I did a little work experience placement at the Jamie Oliver Group, working with like the PR and marketing and communications team. It was a lovely little experience. I got to meet you. I got to I was very lucky with the week that I planned to do it because it was the release of his new cookbook, which was 5 ingredients Mediterranean. So it was very fun. I even got to go to the staff party, which can't lie, that's pretty cool to time it with.
That is very
You
cool.
really lucked out on timing.
I did. It's very good. But yeah, so if we could just start with, if you could tell us a little about like your job and the role you kind of take and what you've been doing there.
Yes, of course. Yeah, so I am a comms executive, so it's like the most sort of junior position in quite a small team. Comms at Jamie Oliver covers any part of the business that needs any sort of PR or communication support. So as you'll know, Olivia, like it's quite a diverse business, and there's everything from restaurants and hospitality to cookbooks and product and TV production, nutrition support, digital website with recipes, campaigning. We have a whole Ministry of food education sort of program, and then also the man himself. Anything that needs sort of PR support or comm support is what myself and my boss are across. And yeah, communications is just communicating out there what our brand does, what the talent does, what the mission is of the brand, everything like that. It's just kind of looping up all of those sort of messaging across the business and getting it out to the consumer and all our different audiences. So that's my job. And as you know from your work experience, it can be very varied, and we had quite a glamorous week of herring across London doing all sorts of like PR broadcast ops, from the One Show to radio and things like that. So that can be some really fun part and facets of my job, and other parts are more like always on content, running LinkedIn channels, engaging with the media all the time. So like it's quite a varied job. It's quite fun. And yeah, I really enjoy it because at this stage in my career, it helps me discover all these different facets of what media is and communications and PR and that whole sort of world. It's so many avenues you could go down. So yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I went into it kind of not knowing how different each day would be. And I think I got lucky in a sense that like that week that I was there, we were it was very busy in a sense everyone was running around, and we were doing different things. But like I had no idea you just do so many different things. And like because like you said, you're working for not just a name, but like a brand, there are so many different aspects that you could be doing things for. So
Yeah,
intense.
exactly. It's just, yeah, that no day's the same, which is quite a nice thing. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you. No, it's really interesting to hear kind of how many different things are entailed in that. It's definitely not straightforward. Something else we were wondering was, so obviously for us, we're both in our final year now of our undergrad degrees. So we wanted to ask a little bit about post-graduation. What was your journey like from going from being a student into what we call, I suppose, the real world? How did you kind of navigate that change? What was it like?
Yeah, sure. Gosh. It makes me feel old. I'm not old. I'm 25,
Yeah.
so but it does feel like a long time ago, graduation. Yeah, so I studied English Lit, which I know
Both.
Liv does. Do you? You both do?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah, so I did that, and then sadly I graduated in the COVID year. So all plans that I had for post-graduation. I knew I wanted to go pretty quickly into work. I would have liked to have had the, privilege of going on a traveling trip or on holiday, but obviously lockdown and everything changed that. So I was like applying for I knew I wanted to go for comms or media. I was in student journalism like yourself. And I was applying for like food brands and stuff because I was the food editor at our paper. So I was trying to line up some like grad schemes, which are really hard to come by in media, and particularly in like PR. They don't really tend to have graduate schemes. It tends to be internships that then, 1 in a million turn into a full-time career. So it's a hard industry to go into, but if you're creative like you girls are, what is kind of like was the only path that I wanted to go down. I didn't really want to compromise on that. So I tried to get a grad scheme. I had an interview lined up for Sainsbury's or something, and then it got cancelled because it was all recruitment freezes. So everything just became suddenly very competitive and very quiet. So I was trying to apply for all of those graduate schemes for like media outlets, and they are so competitive, and let alone when you've got everybody applying for the same jobs because everyone's on recruitment freezes and it's COVID. It was just a really difficult time. So then but that time of sort of like being at home and applying for things did make me sort of really sit down and think, right, okay, so if I can't necessarily get this, what is my interest and what can I focus on in terms of really digging out an opportunity that I would be interested in if the doors did open. And I just started having a look around, and like the media world is so big. It's not just newspapers, like it's brands making stories that newspapers and magazines want to write about. So that's how I started looking down the PR side of it, and actually was really kind of taken by how creative that industry is. Like I was just looking into PR agencies and all these amazing sort of stunts and collaborations and things that they do. And some of them for some really amazing causes and disruptive things that you don't even realize are a PR campaign. It might actually be like a bill in government being passed or something, but that a PR team was behind that. So then I started applying to agencies and actually happened to be quite successful in hearing back from them. And I don't know whether that was just like at the time, suddenly clients were putting budget back into PR and jobs were coming on the market. So I actually started off in a small creative PR agency, which was amazing. And being across, again, so many different clients and different industries gave me quite a lot of sort of exposure to what I might develop interest to, which then ended up being even more so food brands. And then I saw this opportunity come up on LinkedIn and I just applied for it. So I was there for almost 2 years. But I'd say that like time, and that was the nature of being in a COVID lockdown, but that time to put aside to think about, right, well, if I didn't get that thing which I thought I would get or go in straight into, which is journalism, which is just really competitive. um what is it about media that I love, and where else could I find that? And that's how I kind of found PR. And I talk to journalists every day, so I'm still in that world. I'm just on the other side. And it makes you develop skills that would, be transferable if you did then later want to go into journalism, if you found that avenue. So that's how I got to where I was. And if anybody's looking to go into that media sort of world, I would challenge them to think about PR and comms as another form of journalism, because it's just your storytelling at the end of the day. It's just for different brands and different purposes and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think firstly, that's interesting that you say that how hard it is to get into that kind of the media scope of careers, because I don't think I've spoken to anyone that has found it easy ever. So God knows the people that do it, I don't know how they do it. But I think also I think recently I've been looking into the brand and the PR and the comms thing as like, a way to still get into journalism, but it's a different, like you said, a different way to do it. And I think I've been lucky so at home I work, which is kind of linked into what how I got the work experience, but I work at a little chocolate shop called Hill Street back at home. And I think I've had the privilege recently to be able to do a couple of blogs for them and things like that. And I think it's so nice to be able to tell a story. And because I know the guys that work there, I've known them for quite a few years now. And it's so nice to work with them, kind of building this story and like tailoring it around the brand. And people really do want to hear that. And it's so nice when people like, because we live in this little town. I don't know why I'm saying we. I live in a little town. Beth now lives with me. And like people will come in and it's very kind of close knit and everyone's really interested, not just in the products they buy, but the story behind it. And I think probably the same with you, like there is such a big story behind, you know, the Jamie Oliver group, and it's really interesting to be on that side of telling the story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to do some PR for your own brand, because I've actually got Hill Street right next to me. And I can say and testify that they are delicious. Bean to bar chocolate and amazing suppliers, because they've got the Jamie stamp of approval. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that I'd say for people who are looking to explore that sort of world after university, those sort of opportunities, honestly, even if you I used to work for a pub in between university and doing social content for them, or like any access you have to a brand or an organization, whether that be someone you volunteer for, your own sort of Etsy shop that you set up in lockdown, anything that you can prove to copywriting, content creation, even if it's on a tiny scale, that is proof and experience and evidence, and employers will really respect that. And I think, to your point as well, of a smaller community where you've got stories and testimonies of how much people love it, that is the best PR to do, because you know people, or storytelling, because you know people love it. You're not flogging something that is a hard sell. Like, people love that chocolate, and that is a really gorgeous town and a really wonderful community, and that will make for amazing storytelling. So whether you go into journalism or PR or comms, it's about knowing where that sweet spot is of people talking about it, and that buzz and that hype. That is where your best storytelling will come from. It doesn't matter what channel you end up doing it for. So yeah, I'd say if you're like, where do I start? You'll have something in your life, even if it's your friends like this, like you girls have a passion for storytelling evidently, and you've made an outlet out of it. Are you in your student accommodation right now?
Yeah, we're in better.
Exactly, like you've made it happen. That's amazing. And I think that will serve you guys so well, and hopefully like shows people that you don't need to have
No.
like high-end mic
Me.
production. Like, you know, there'll be a way of doing it. Or if you don't have access to that sort of tech, someone you know will just like outreach and make it work. So yeah, I think you guys are doing a great thing.
Oh, thank you. I think what I found really interesting about everything you said there was how ultimately, as you were saying, it's all creative, it's all media, it's all journalism, it's just different forms, different ways of doing things with different purposes. And I think that's so nice to kind of, as someone who's graduating soon, to be able to look at that kind of wider picture, because obviously it's really nice to have like a clear plan, but not everyone does have that before they graduate, and that's fine. There's plenty of options, there's plenty of pathways that you can take. So it's really nice to hear someone kind of explain that and see that it's worked.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. And like, particularly media, it's an ever-changing landscape. I mean, what was considered PR 8 years ago was like traditional print interviews, and that's the only way you got coverage. Today, it's social first. And like, I was on a conference earlier, to people talking about how you need to be versed in AI if you want to think about the future of PR and comms like that. Like, it's ever changing. So I'd say to anybody again going into that industry, don't be worried about not having experience in, you know, traditional journalism or print interviews or social content creation. There's everything feeds into it, to your point, Beth. Like, everything will become relevant. It's just about pulling on those skills. And if you just use the word storytelling, you will get far, because that is the essence of it. And if you just say in interviews, like, I know how to storytell, then that's the essence of it all, is you're just trying to communicate one message to one audience or another. And yeah, it will be brilliant. And as well, in terms of thinking about, you know, I don't have a plan. My biggest, and actually there's one of these questions I know that might come up, so I don't know if you want me to bring it up now, but what my advice would be is, you don't like, and I know it's quite a cliche one, but having a plan, don't put that pressure on yourself or stress. Like, even though I was like, no, I know I bloody hate maths and things. I'm never going to end up in STEM or anything like that. I can't do that. I mean, women in STEM and all that, I empower everyone to go and do that, but I know personally I can't. So I was like, I know I'm going to go into this media world, but and I was like, and this first job's got to be that sweet spot. It's got to put me on that path. I need to keep building from that point. And then you will have, I think it's on average, like the average person has about 5 careers in their lifetime. Your first job does not need to be it. You don't need to have made and nailed your career in the first one that you do. Like, I may be doing PR now, but God knows what I'll be doing when I'm 55. And I think having that freedom and just being like, it's going to be a really fluid journey. You may stay in the same career for 40 years, and that's amazing. But most people don't get it right on the first go. And I think particularly university students come out dedicating themselves to one discipline for 3 or 5 years, and you're told to become an expert in it, and that's amazing, and you'll have this passion point and this expertise which will serve you so much in life. But you, like, your working career won't be like that. It will be so much more fluid. And I think easing yourself of that pressure of like, okay, I might actually, like, our social media manager at work, he started off as an accountant and now he's the social media manager for Jamie, like one of the social media team for Jamie Oliver. So like, just, I think knowing that your book might be quite open will take that stress off of you. For me, it did in the end anyway. And COVID made me go through that realization because it wasn't going to happen. But also it's just really exciting now looking ahead, like who knows what I'll do, who knows where I'll be, who knows what you girls will do. It'll be, I think that's an exciting thing to give yourself, not stress.
Yeah.
Because it's stressful enough trying to find a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that both of us, I would imagine, love most about the media, journalism, studying English, is how versatile it is, how many doors it opens, how many options you have. You don't have to just dedicate yourself to one thing right away. You can just take the path that feels right, I guess, focus on what you enjoy and then see where it takes you.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and English is a great one to do because, like you say, it's got such a breadth of skill and such a breadth of relevance. You could be a lawyer, you could be an HR expertise, you could be a PR, you could be a journalist, you could be the Prime Minister. Like, it doesn't, like, you're talking to people and it doesn't matter, like, that is relevant in every career. Even if you're an engineer, you've got to be able to tell one team to the other what you're doing. You could work in internal comms for like a pharmaceutical company or something. Like, it's so relevant. So you guys will be fine. You're gonna find something.
So after that, I felt like inspired now.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I went on a ramble.
So obviously you did mention that you were involved with student journalism, and obviously as student journalists, we'd love to hear a little bit more about that and kind of your progress through student journalism.
Yeah, totally. So Orbit's a magazine,
Orbital.
right? Orbital. As a magazine. So do you do print or is it all online?
We've got print, we've got online, we've got the podcast now, but yeah, we're trying to keep staying in print.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's such a great skill to have. So I started in my first year, I was just writing for music, lifestyle, and I think an odd bit of culture. Mainly because it was like, well, I knew I liked writing and it was something I wanted to start building up a bit of a portfolio for, but also it helped me see, I went to Birmingham and it helped me see a lot of the city, like going to some gigs, the shows, like just getting out there, randomly taking it off an ops list with someone I don't know and just like going to a show with them. It was a lovely way to meet people. And then I went for an editor position in my second year and I was a food editor, an online food editor, which was amazing. I absolutely loved that. And helped me with, like, you know, websites and digital stuff, which was great. And then the final year I was deputy ed, so like you, Beth, and had so much fun. It was such a social position as well. I loved that because we were kind of more, we were all across spreads, but we were a bit more like EA training. We had editorial assistants come in and we proof all our pages with us and stuff, and like kind of building a bit more of a hub around the office and like just like trying to build a bit of a culture around our paper and like incentivize people about what our outlet was trying to do. And it was great fun. I absolutely loved it and I found it really empowering. Like, overseeing these teams that were all so passionate about specific things. Like our gaming desk was just amazing, and they floored the awards every year because they had such in-depth knowledge of their industry and wrote the most amazing features with the most amazing opinions. And it was like a real just like platform and springboard for people to just have a go at writing. There was no, and every time we'd always have people come to like the kickoff meetings or like, you know, freshers affair and be like, well, how do you write? How do you start? And we were like, well, there's like a rough guideline on, you know, how many word count, but it's just give it a go. Like there's no, you just start and you'll find your rhythm and you'll find your voice. And yeah, you might have some editorial guidelines. You've got your editors there to help you, but there's no one's an expert. You don't join uni like
In the know.
the editor-in-chief of the Guardian. Like you just figure it out. So yeah, I loved it. It was great, like organization, and people were so lovely and different personalities, some real quiet people who were just there and were like some of the loudest voices on print, which is an amazing thing to see. And some like really charismatic people who would just had some incredible stories to tell as well. And we had people write anonymously for some really powerful, like sort of sensitive subjects, which were amazing. And I'll always remember that. Like I remember there was someone at our awards who wrote anonymously and they chose to on a really sensitive subject, and we said, this, you've won this award, we do not expect you to come up and get it. And they did, and they revealed who they were, and it was like really emotional, and like it was such a special moment. And I was like, wow, this is the power of what students can do, because universities are enormous, like the paths of lives you have crossing over there, and this is some of the best journalism out there. Like it just doesn't get that much traction because it's a university paper, not a national title. But no, I absolutely love it. Some of the best days of my university life. But yeah, it's great.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, that's so nice. And I think something anyone who's listened to the podcast so far will know we like to talk about is finding your niche, as we call it. And I think that's something you really touched on there. And that's something I've loved so much being part of the editorial team, is seeing people's journey, people who have maybe written since their first year and now in their third year and have really discovered, actually, this is the specific thing that I particularly enjoy writing about and that I'm really dedicated to, that I have knowledge on. And it's just nice to give people that platform to not only put their work out there, but to experiment and find out what works best for them, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like what you said about people coming, and I think we found it. I mean, I did the same thing when I started in first year, because I started with the Orbital back in first year. And I remember being like, oh, I've never had experience. I've never written an article before. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they'd obviously say, like, just read the like little guide that probably is in the back of a drive somewhere. But at the end of the day, just do it and send it in, and, you know, we'll give you feedback. And I think what's been so lovely is now getting to the position that we're at now, where we're now getting those like queries. And obviously I don't want to say, I'll just do it and, you know, we'll figure out. But like, it is so nice to be able to say, we don't expect you to have written anything before. Like, you know, just hand in what you think and the feedback will be there. But yeah, like I think people assume that even for a student magazine they have to have all this like experience. And the only reason I learned how to, and I'm not saying I can write, you know, articles that are going to be for those big places like the Guardian or the Times or something like that, but the only reason I'm at the stage where I'm at now is because I've had those 3 years where I've just keep writing, keep handing things in, keep getting feedback. And I look at the editors that are now editors back when we were in first year, the team back then, and they're doing all these amazing things now. And it shows you that you can start with this little student paper and then go on to do these amazing things. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also don't put like saying like, oh, I'm not saying I can write like
No, yeah, I'm not
for a national news. You can totally. And I do just think as well, women going into industries, like particularly when it comes to like writing and things that are really personal and you feel really exposed.
Yeah.
Conventionally, women shrink because they get scared, and we're not like, it's not a environment that's always been sort of portrayed as like brazen women coming in first off, just pitching things out there. You can write for a national paper, absolutely. You totally can. Both of you can. You run a bloody magazine. Like, of course you can. So yeah, and don't underestimate it. Like, yeah, it feels like a small student newspaper, but it's totally run by undergraduates. Like, that is insane. Like, you formed a whole organization and publication that prints, digitally publishes, and is keeping up with a podcast, like a broadcast platform. Like, you're just doing everything that the BBC do, just on a tinier scale and with no budget. Like, that's insane. That's so good. So yeah, don't underestimate it. It's brilliant experience.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to what we were talking about before regarding your role now and everything. Obviously working in PR, working in comms, you must deal with the media a lot, as you kind of touched on. We're wondering, is there a way that you would kind of describe that relationship? Any kind of thoughts on the dynamic and just a general overview of what that's like for you working in that scope?
Yeah, absolutely. So media relations for me are the most enjoyable thing about working in PR, particularly when you're an agency. That is your currency for your client, is that you can get coverage for them. So lunching and brunching and wining and dining journalists is very, very fun. And it is all about having the ability to relationship build. And my first media meet was with a much older lady who was had the most amazing career in journalism. She was now sort of freelancing and doing lots of things for animal protection, which is one of my clients, was an animal sort of charity. And it's just being able to connect with people from all ages and walks of life, sit down, have a coffee with them, have lunch with them, and like talk about their passion and your client's passion or your story, and how you can come together and form something that everyone's going to want to read. So you just have to look like, and if you go into PR, people are like, it's very easy for people to sort of paint PR as a slightly annoying, because particularly if you're in an agency, you'll be selling in almost every day. So that used to be on the phone, like ringing news desks and pitching your story. That rarely happens anymore because, it's more about email pitching and like taking people out and getting to know their relationship and who they are. And then sort of, you might even text them or build a close relationship with them, because there's so many PRs selling in, you want to make your story cut through. So people can paint like PRs as quite annoying and stuff, but actually for media, we're crucial. Like, they can't research everything that's going on in the world. They can't know about every single piece of brand news. We're really useful. We whittle it down into a newsworthy beat that they might want to cover, that has been shaped specifically for their outlet or for their audience. So it's also having feeling confident that you are useful in that, because I think when you first go into it, you feel a bit like you're taking up people's time. Thank you so much for coming out for half an hour. They're getting a free lunch as well, and a lot of time free press trips. They will go to restaurants, on holidays, to hotels. They have a great time. And obviously there's a whole other piece about paying for journalists' time and stuff like that, but you have to think about the worth of the story you're giving them. That's a story they can run and paper they can sell, or story they can put online and get ad spend from. We're all in the same game and everyone's trying to be profitable here, but yeah, it's just about forming those really key relationships with them and taking them on that journey of what your brand does, getting them to trust your brand, love your brand, and be excited about what you're doing. So when you do release something new, or your founder says something or whatever, they want to know, because they're behind your brand. So it's trust building, finding out about them, making friends with them. We used to take our client journalists out for nail appointments, because they're so busy. They were like, well, I'll get my nails done with you and we can chat whilst they're drying. It's just about being useful to their readership, and them being useful to your comms goals. What do you want to get out there in the press? So yeah, it's a great relationship, and people that you take with you all through your life, and they can open doors to you. They go off and found charities and agencies and other publications, and that might be really useful to you later in life. So yeah, they're great relationships to form.
That's good. That's good to hear. I think because often the media gets such a not bad rep. I mean, I'm not saying it's all good, but I think it's nice to hear the side where obviously there's always the good and the bad that comes with the media. And I think it's so nice to hear from someone who works with, you know, a brand of a name, that those relationships are good, and you know, you can have those lovely meetings and you can get your nails done. I mean, that sounds lovely. And it can still be, you know, really good, and those relationships can become really strong. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I was doing the nails thing in my old job. I don't get my nails
yeah,
painted on Jamie
yeah,
Oliver, just
I
to
was,
put that out there.
yeah. But
But
nonetheless,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And also, yeah, there are sticky sides to the media, particularly like working for a celebrity brand. You've got an even more higher stake at risk. You're like, it's a one person leading the image of a brand. But that's just life. Like, you as an individual can't win everybody's like admiration or trust. But when you personally believe, like when you work for an organization and you believe in the message, it's much easier to kind of work and with those more sort of difficult relationships. Like I joined the business because I really believe in the food education side of it and making cooking accessible and all the wonderful things that we do at the brand. So that makes that side of it easier. And with sticky relationships, it's just good. It's good experience, because that's going to be whatever industry you go into. You're going to have people that don't like what you're doing or saying bad things about you. It's just about getting the truth out there and communicating facts, and what they choose to do for clickbaity headlines or whatever else. It is their agenda, and you know what you're putting out there with integrity. So yeah, I do remember my first ever selling when I was at an agency. I had to do it by the phone. Oh, horrible. And I got told to like basically bugger off, because they were in court. They were like, I'm at a court hearing, I can't talk to you now. And I was like, oh my God, I just wanted to tell you about sort of like puppies that needed adopting or something. So I was like, I'm kind of glad you didn't pick up the phone. So you can't win them all. And I think that's another thing to take with you, is like, you win some, you lose some. Don't lose sleep over it.
no, indeed.
Absolutely.
So as we are very quickly running out of time,
Awesome.
we've got a couple of questions. So how we ask a lot of people that come on, like, how do you find balancing kind of work life, personal life? You know, any tips and tricks there?
Well, work-life balance is just try and leave on time. No, it's just sort of like working out your day where you get the things that you've got to get done, and then communicating to people around you that I need to leave at this time and I'm gonna go. I think it also depends on your employer, but like particularly if there's lots of pressures and stuff, you just say, I've delivered XYZ, I've got to leave at this time, and I'm gonna go. And just, yeah, prioritizing things. If you like, you find it hard to make time for exercise, if you can book a class, because then you've got to go. Or say you've got plans and you've got to leave. So yeah, just putting things first. And like, most employers are really understanding. Everybody's got the same, people have families and things like that. You just communicate what you need to get done, and hopefully everyone will be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. It's just, I guess that's one of many things that, as with any industry, not just this one, is a bit of a learning curve, but everyone's just figuring it out. The final question is something that we ask everyone who comes on the podcast. So thank you for joining us, first of all. And we would love to hear if you have a book recommendation at all. That's something we ask everyone for, if they'd like to share a book that they've read that they maybe particularly enjoyed or thought was helpful in some way.
Tell me two English students are running the podcast that are technically joining.
Isn't it?
I don't want to say something that people have already said, but my favorite book ever, I just need to make sure I got the title right, is Half a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
I feel like I
The lady who did We Should All Be Feminists, and it's overlaid in a lot of Beyonce's music, that sort of TED talk. It's just a beautiful, beautiful novel about the Nigerian Civil War, which I had no knowledge of, which shows my ignorance there in history, and no knowledge of the details of. And it's just an amazing account of, yeah, people's lives through that. And she describes food so beautifully in it as well, and how that was like a really central part of like documenting those experiences. So yeah, I loved that. That was a brilliant novel. So I'd recommend people read that.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so much.
Thank you. So that's the end of today. Thank you very much for joining us. It was very interesting, as always.
Thanks for having me.
It's all right. And we look forward to everyone. We hope everyone's enjoyed, and we look forward to kind of seeing everyone again. Well, maybe not seeing everyone, but hoping people watch again for the next episode that should be coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Lydia, and see you soon, hopefully.
Thanks.
I hate recording ending.